So let's talk about what this means for the future, okay? One thing I never believe is that it's better to lose than to win. I really dislike this when anti-Trumpers sometimes say to me, it would have been better if Trump had lost and then Hillary would have faced a divided Congress. And so she wouldn't have been able to get everything done. And I think first of all, she would have gotten 3 court appointments. We never would have overturned Roe in my lifetime. But even aside from that, the same people who on election night were telling me Trump was going to lose in a landslide are telling me what would have happened over the course of 4 years. Hours before Trump won, they were wrong, but they're going to tell me what was going to happen in 4 years. It's always better to win than to lose. And while this wasn't a loss, I still think we're going to get the House. It was a massive disappointment. And part of that was our expectations. And this is a big thing. People saw the conditions for a red wave, and it affected the way they read the polls. I came in to do backstage on election night, and in my heart, I didn't want to say it because what good is it to say it when you just don't know the future? You're just talking. But in my heart, I thought, this is not going to be anything like a red wave. And the reason I thought that is when I talked to the numbers guys, even though they were telling me it was going to be a red wave, they were telling me in these kind of mealy-mouthed terms. They were saying there's a 70% chance this will happen. And I thought, that's not what I want to hear. And I was kind of worried about it. So the disappointment comes from the expectations, right? If we had come in thinking, I don't know what's going to happen, I hope it'll be good. But we saw the conditions for a red wave, so we saw the red wave coming, and we're disappointed. Some people now are going to start trading on your disappointment and your fear and your anger. This is going to happen, and again, that's why I say guard your heart. Guard your heart, purify your emotions. Remember what you are doing here, right? Remember, the Huck Finn doctrine is you have to look into your heart and you have to check in your heart. I want you to listen to somebody who I have no respect for, a guy named Nick Fuentes. He is obviously this far right winger. And this is, to me, what fear sounds like. Listen to his reaction.
This is an evil country, and this country will surprise you with how evil it is. And that's why you got to get this out of your head that there is some silent majority cavalry that's going to come out of the woods and save us at the last minute. It's not. When we meet the left on the battlefield and they outnumber us like 5-1, that's it. But the point is, when you look at these things like abortion, it's popular. People like abortion, hate it, but it's true. And you can thank the Jewish media for that. Abortion's popular. Sodomy's popular. Being gay is popular. Being a feminist is popular. Sex out of wedlock is popular. Contraceptives it's all popular. That's not to say it's good. That's not to say I like that. Popular means the people support it, which they do. And it sucks, and it is what it is, but that's why we need dictatorship. That's unironically why we need to get rid of all that. We need to take control of the media or take control of the government and force the people to believe what we believe, or force them to play by our rules and reshape the society.
So a dictatorship to crush the Jews. It's a shame no one's ever thought of that before. He's afraid. He's a scared guy. He's a little man. He's a scared guy because in a free country, people believe things he doesn't like, and some of those things are actually evil, like abortion. And so he wants to crush their freedom in order to preserve what? What does he want to preserve? Some moral, world that's going to be there because he's oppressing people? That's not the way it works. You can't love freedom if you don't love the people who are free. You can't love freedom if you don't love the people. And this is why Democrats have gone astray, because they hate us, because they think we're deplorable. They hate Huck Finn. They think, oh, no, I'm the expert. Huck Finn's got to be quiet and do what I tell him to do. And I say, no, you guys are wrong about everything, And if I wish you were right, every now and again, like a stop clock, you're right about something. So I have to keep my mind clear and make sure I'm not just disagreeing with you. But he says America is evil. I say America is what we make it and what we convince people to be. And I think, what's my strategy? My strategy is love my neighbor and love my God and love my enemies, and step back and take a look at where we are. The people who voted liked Biden more than the general population by about 2 points. People who voted. So in other words, they got turnout. They had turnout. It was key that those 2 points make a big difference in the results. The people who voted for Democrats were single women and young people. Florida, for instance, is an older state. There's a lot of retirees there. They have a higher median age. It's like 42 instead of 38. But to despair, to think that what young people think now is what the future is going to look like. Do you believe what you believed when you were young? I don't. I mean, people change. They get wiser. They learn things. And they have leadership that changes them. Young people who saw Reagan come in may have hated Reagan when he was elected, but they loved him when he left because they saw what he did. Women, single women especially, vote for the Democrats, and women are more easily frightened than men. They'd be nuts not to be. People always say, well, it's the hormones and all this stuff. It's not, I don't know. Women would be crazy not to be more nervous and more anxious than men. They're smaller and weaker, and they're surrounded by people who are bigger and stronger and like to abuse them. Like that would make anybody strong. Plus, they're charged with defending the most valuable resource that people have, which is other people, little people. They have to nurture them. They have to create them. It makes them physically vulnerable. It means they have somebody who is helpless that they have to protect against people who are bigger than they are. They'd be nuts not to be more anxious than men. So of course they are. And of course the Democrats use it. They use that. There's climate is going to kill you and, you're going to lose your democracy. It's all fear. And fear, as Scott Adams is always saying, is an excellent way of controlling people and convincing people, and women are susceptible to that. So, and single women are more likely to look for protection and support from the government in the same way that married women look for protection and support to their husbands. And so the GOP has become, to a large degree, the party of married people, and people are getting married less. And that makes people who are despairing think, well, the GOP is doomed. Remember, we were doomed because the Hispanics were coming, and now Ron DeSantis has shown that, no, you don't have to be doomed. You can win the Hispanic votes, too, if you do the things that you need to do. The other thing that I have to say about women is women are miserable. I mean, I say this all the time. Young women especially are miserable. They're beginning to realize they got a bum deal, that married life is better than living a single life and living for your work. Motherhood is good, and the earlier you do it, the better. Femininity is a gift to mankind, and they're the only ones who have it. They're the only ones who have it. Trans women may be many things, but the one thing they're not are women. And the only people who have femininity is women, and it is a gift to a society because it civilizes a society, it uplifts it, it makes it a better place. When they realize they've had a bum deal, when they start to change their minds, and this has happened before, I've talked about it, it happened in the Romantic period, and when they realize what these doctrines of free love and free sex and feminism have gotten them, I think the Democrats are going to be in trouble. Like Nick Fuentes, I sometimes disagree with the majority. And a lot of times I disagree with the majority. I wish people valued freedom more than security, but they don't always do that. I wish people oppose abortion as much as I do, but they don't do that. I wish people could uphold motherhood and marriage and the family without browbeating gays or penalizing those women who are really happier having a career than building a family. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to support what I support. I don't need to attack the people who make different decisions. But one of the problems is we seem to only be able to divide in black and white. I cannot tell you how many times I have said something between one side and another, and all anybody hears is that I didn't completely agree with them, so I must completely disagree with them. It happens to me again and again. It's like they have two little slots in their head, and if you don't go in one slot, they put you in the other. That's how guys like Nick Fuentes get along. That's how they say to people say, yeah, that might make sense because at least they're fitting in that slot where all their fear and their malice is. You look at Ron DeSantis, you cannot disagree that this is a major victory. He didn't attack transgender people. He defended women and children. He defended women and children from these groomers, which is what they are. I disagree with Ben on this. He says they're not grooming them sexually. Yes, they are. And he didn't attack the transgender people. He attacked the groomers and he protected women and children, women's sports and so on. He didn't attack Mexican people. He defended the border. He didn't attack gays. He defended education. He defined the issues and turned out to be right on the pandemic. And that, of course, is a big one. The Republicans need a leader who defines where we stand and why we fight without being cruel to the people who are outside the norm. And he does the job. And then, here's the thing. This country is divided. But people are divided. People are divided in their hearts. It's like Solzhenitsyn said, the line between good and evil runs through every human heart. And you can't win people over to the purpose of marriage, to faith, to truth and beauty, all the things that we believe in. You can't win people over with an iron hand. It defeats the purpose of winning. Virtue has to be freely chosen. So we have to leave people free. And that's why guys like Nick Fuentes, I think, can just, take a hike. It's ridiculous. You have to speak to that guy, that Huck Finn who's trying to make a decision. You have to speak into his heart and tell him the things that he knows to be true are all right. Because remember, a lot of people think like, well, I don't want to pick on some guy because he thinks he's a girl, but you have to be able to say, yeah, you don't have to pick on him. You just have to protect your children from him. You just have to make sure that truth is spoken. You have to make sure that people don't say trans women are women because they're not women. You don't stop them from saying it, but you just have to argue with it and be bold. And when a leader does that, he can transform people's hearts. And we can win in the future. I just want to end with one last thing. 1978, all right? This is Jimmy Carter is president. Jimmy Carter has been president for 2 years. Jimmy Carter was the worst president until Joe Biden. Stagflation, I can remember the stagflation, gas lines, people lined up for gas, energy problems like we have them now, unbelievable crime. The crime was just going up and up and up. Communism, the Soviet Union was reaching its high water mark, taking over places in South America and Africa because he thought we were too afraid of them. We were a little ways away from being completely humiliated by their march into Afghanistan. The 1978 midterms, you would have thought the Republicans were going to clean up. And instead, the Democrats retained control of both houses of Congress. This is the most recent election in which the Democrats maintained a trifecta of control at the federal level. The Democrats, I'm reading from Wikipedia, the Democrats lost 3 seats in the United States Senate to the Republican Party, and they won the popular vote for the House of Representatives, even though they lost 15 seats. But they kept both houses of Congress, even though they were doing the worst job ever, okay? But it went on, and the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and the Muslims took hostages in Iran. And by the time the next presidential election came along, the country was ready for Ronald Reagan and the revolution that gave us 25 years of prosperity and peace and won the Cold War while the media whined and attacked and complained, and Reagan just swept the floor with them. This is just a moment. Virginia has gone red, Ohio, Iowa, Florida, states that were kind of on the cusp. A lot of things are changing. Joe Biden has said he's not going to change anything. I say, good for you, Joe. You just keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to keep doing what you're doing. It's scary out here on planet Earth, but we believe in freedom, and what we're fighting for is freedom. And we may lose the fight. But I'm not going to surrender it to angry people, and I'm not going to surrender it to the left. It's like, I just believe that I believe in Huck Finn. I believe in every man and every woman. I believe that we have the right and the capability of finding what's right if we have leaders and if we have bold people who will speak the truth into our hearts. Thanksgiving is coming. We're going to celebrate Thanksgiving. Christmas is coming. God is in his heaven. Here on earth, as always, the fight goes on. Let's fight the fight. Wow, was that great or what? Sure it was. Like and subscribe. And also, please subscribe to the Andrew Klavan Podcast.